Having a bad credit score sucks. You can barely get a house or a car or an apartment or even a decent credit card that offers good rewards. The good news though is that your bad credit score can be fixed. All it'll take is a little bit of time and patience, but if you're up for it, here's exactly how you can fix even the worst of credit scores. So the very first thing that you'll want to do is pull your credit report. And there's a few different ways you can do this completely free. The first way is by requesting your free credit reports from annualcreditreport.com. Each of the 3 credit reporting agencies, Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion, are required by law to provide consumers with a complimentary credit report once per year if they request it. And so this website will allow you to request them. You can also use a website like Credit Sesame if you want a much more user-friendly interface. And the good thing about Credit Sesame is that you'll be able to see your credit score, which is updated once per month. But once you've pulled your credit report, what things should you be looking for? And then once you find them, how can you actually fix them so that you can then increase your credit score? Well, some of the more common reasons for a bad credit score and what you should be looking for on your report include having little to no credit history, late payments, maxed out accounts, applying for too much credit, and foreclosures and bankruptcies. Let's go over exactly what each of these are and how you can fix or remove them from your credit report to increase your credit score. Starting with the first, which is having little to no credit history. If you have little to no credit history, you've never had any credit cards or loans or anything like that, your credit report will likely look like this. Nothing. You may have like one credit card on there or like a store credit card that you opened up 2 years ago to get 15% off your purchase at JCPenney. But other than that, there's nothing on your credit report. It's clean, and in the eyes of lenders, this is actually a bad thing. If this is the case for you, if your credit report is clean, then the only way to fix that is to start using credit. And the easiest way to start using credit is to open up a credit card. Now, if you are brand new to the world of credit, then you may not be able to be approved for an unsecured traditional credit card. And so when you're first getting started, you may have to open up a secured credit card. I've actually got a video about the best credit cards for beginners. I'll link that down below for you to watch, but only after you finish watching this video, of course. But overall, having a bad credit score because you have little to no credit history is not a terrible spot to be in, and it's very easily fixable. For most people in this situation, going from a low 600 to a mid 700 after several months of using a credit card and making on-time payments is not out of the ordinary. Just please remember to use your card responsibly. Don't buy things that you know you can't afford. Always pay off your balances in full and avoid carrying balances over from month to month. And that actually brings us to the next reason for a low credit score, which is having late payments on your credit file. Late payments are one of the worst things to have on your credit report because they make up 35% of your entire credit score. And so even having just one late payment can have a profoundly negative impact on your credit score. Late payments on your credit report will look like this. This is a sample Equifax credit report, and this will look slightly different on the TransUnion and Experian credit reports, but for the most part, they'll all look like this with the sort of calendar layout. You've got the year, and even though for some reason you can't see the actual months on this report, there's 12 rows in total, and they represent January through December. And so if you have a perfect payment history, you've never missed a single credit card or utility bill payment, then it's going to look like this with all green check marks. If you have any late payments like 30, 60, 90, 180-day late payments, it's going to show up just like this in the example credit report. And just keep in mind, this will be for all of the different credit cards and loans that you have open in your credit report. And so for example, if you have 5 different credit cards, then you'll see this sort of calendar layout 5 different times on your credit report, one for each credit card. Now, when it comes to late payments, I want to make one thing very clear. I don't want you to think that just because you miss a credit card payment or a utility bill payment by one day that your credit score is going to drop 500 points and your life is going to shatter into a million unfixable pieces. That's not true. For starters, lenders don't report any late payments that are less than 30 days. I mean, as you can see in this example, there's not even an option for a 1-day late payment or a 1-week late payment. The earliest option is a 30-day late payment. And so if you miss a payment on your credit card or utility bill or anything like that that reports to a credit agency, you shouldn't have to worry about it having a negative impact on your credit score. But something else that's very important to understand is that when it comes to late payments, there are levels of severity. Generally speaking, the more late the payment, the more of a negative impact it has on your credit score. And so for example, payments that are 90 days late will have a larger impact than payments that are say 30 days late. Payments that are 150 days late will have a larger impact than payments that are 90 days late. And creditors will typically report late payments in one of these categories. Now, in the absolute worst case scenario, after 150 or sometimes 180 days of delinquency, if you continue to not make payments on your loan or credit card, the lender will either charge off the debt or they'll sell it to a collection agency. These are both considered significant events and will have a drastically negative impact on your credit score. A charge-off happens when you stop making payments on a debt and the lender stops trying to collect payments from you. When they choose to do this, they charge off the debt. This means that they write off the loan as a loss for the company, cancel your accounts, and will likely report the charge-off to the 3 major credit agencies. Additionally, they'll likely sell your debt to a collection agency agency who will then pursue you to pay off your debt, which you are still responsible to pay. And what's even worse is that late payments will stay on your credit report for 7 years and will have a negative impact on how lenders see you. Many lenders will be far less likely to give you new lines of credit or loans, and if they do, they're going to give them to you with significantly higher interest rates. And so how do you avoid all of this in the first place? Well, this may sound super obvious, but the easiest way to avoid this is by not falling behind in payments in the first place. And the most guaranteed way of not falling behind on your payments is setting up the auto pay feature with your credit card. By enabling the auto pay feature, you can guarantee that you'll always make at least the minimum payment on your credit card or loan, which will help you avoid missing payments, becoming delinquent, and destroying your credit. Now, if you're in a situation where you have no established credit or even bad credit and you're finding it difficult to build credit, then I'm very excited to talk with you about today's sponsor, Credit Sesame. Many of you already know that Credit Sesame can help you to monitor and build your credit score for free. And with the new Sesame Cash debit card, the money that you already have and the daily debit purchases that you make can now build your credit history with the credit builder feature enabled. Sesame Cash is the first free all-in-one account that can help automatically build your credit score without a traditional credit card when you enable the credit builder feature. Simply use the card the same way you would any debit card. Buy groceries, pay bills, go to the movies, buy the stuff that you want and need, and Credit Sesame will automatically report all of your purchases that add up to your set credit utilization to the 3 major credit agencies to help build your credit score each month. And what's even better is Credit Sesame will pay you as your credit score goes up. You'll earn $10 for every 10 credit score point increases up to $100. Just be sure to check the program terms. And so not only are you able to build your credit score using a free debit card, but you'll also get paid for doing it. Sign up for a completely free Credit Sesame account today using the link in the description below and start building your credit score with Sesame Cash. Now, if you have late payments or charge-offs or collections on your credit report, how can you remove them quickly and for free? The first way is by negotiating a pay-for-delete arrangement. This is when someone agrees to pay off their collections account in exchange for the debt collector erasing the account from their credit report. And if your debt is still with the original lender, you can ask to pay off your debt in full in exchange for them removing the charge-off from your credit report. Now, this won't always work, but oftentimes the lender will be happy to go through with this agreement if it means that they'll get their money. If, however, your debt has already been sold to a third-party company such as a collection agency or the mafia, that's even better. When a collection agency buys debt from lenders, they're typically buying it for a fraction of the total amount. And so, for example, if you owe $10,000 to Bank XYZ and you stop making payments on that money, Bank XYZ will eventually charge off your debt and sell it to a collection agency for $2,000, just as an example. And so this means Bank XYZ has lost $8,000. However, you still owe $10,000, and so the collection agency can now pursue you and try and get you to pay that money back. Now, remember, the collection agency only paid $2,000 for your debt, and so if they can get you to pay off the debt in full, that means they stand to profit $8,000. However, this also means that they may be willing to potentially settle for less than $8,000 if it means that they can still make a profit. And so this may be a way for you to negotiate with them to remove any negative marks from your credit report by sending them a pay-for-delete letter. Because remember, a collections agency is still a business and they still want to make money. I'm going to include a download link below for a sample pay-for-delete letter. Feel free to download this and use it if you need to send one of these letters. Now, if you send the letter and they reject it, don't worry because you still have options. You could also send what's known as a GOODWILL letter, which is a letter that asks lenders to remove any negative marks from your credit report. Typically, GOODWILL letters are only going to work on smaller negative items such as late payments or missed payments. Again, I'll include a sample GOODWILL letter template that you can download completely free in the description below. Another way to potentially have negative marks removed from your credit report is to simply look for inaccuracies or errors and dispute them. According to the FTC, as much as 25% of all credit reports contain errors serious enough to affect your credit score. Errors will typically include things like incorrect personal information, accounts that don't belong to you, missing accounts, incorrect public records, duplicate accounts, incorrect inquiries, or fraudulent activity. And so if you can find inaccurate information or errors on any of the late payments on your credit report, you can dispute them and potentially get them removed altogether. Okay, the next reason you may have a bad credit score is you have maxed out accounts. Earlier, we talked about how your payment history makes up 35% of your total credit score. However, the next largest category is your credit utilization, which is the amount of your total credit that you're using, aka the amount that you owe. A low credit utilization means that you're using less of your available credit. Lenders will typically interpret this as an indication that you are responsible. You do a good job of managing your credit by not overspending. This, of course, will lead to a higher credit score, which will make it easier to get things things like mortgages, car loans, personal loans, and credit cards with favorable terms. However, if your credit utilization is high, it means that you're charging far too much on your credit cards, or even worse, you're maxing them out. Lenders will interpret this as an indication that you are not responsible. A high credit utilization is associated with high risk and thus will lead to a lower credit score. In general, it's recommended that you keep your credit utilization below a 30%. For example, if your total credit limit is $10,000, then your balance should never exceed $3,000, which is 30% of $10,000. However, in my personal opinion, 30% is still too high, and even that will have a negative impact on your credit score. I personally believe that you should aim to keep your credit utilization below a 10% if you actually want to improve your credit score. And so once again, if you have a credit limit of $10,000, then your total balance should never exceed $1,000. And so now that you understand credit utilization, let's imagine a scenario, for example, where you have that same $10,000 credit limit. But let's also say, for example, that you've been nearly maxing out that line of credit and you've been carrying a balance of $9,000. Well, the problem with this, as you probably know, is that your credit utilization is going to be a 90%, which is far above the 30% that is often recommended and definitely way far above the 10% that I would recommend. And this excessively high credit utilization is a major red flag to the credit agencies, who will mark you as a risk, which in turn will lower your credit score. And so if this is you, if you have maxed out accounts and a high credit utilization, how do you fix this? Well, the good news is that unlike late payments, which stay on your credit report for 7 years, a high credit utilization is much more forgiving once you get it under control. You could have a completely maxed out account with a 100% credit utilization 1 month, which could drop your score as much as 50 points, but then the next month you pay down that balance and you have a credit utilization of 10%, and your credit score would be able to quickly recover that 50-point drop. And so to fix a high credit utilization, simply pay down your cards. Once you do this, you'll almost immediately start to see your credit score increase. Now, I've actually got a trick that you can use to increase your credit utilization without actually paying off your balances. I know that sounds bad. I'm obviously not condoning you being in credit card debt and carrying large balances, but if you're actively working to pay off your debt, this additional trick can help to speed up how fast your credit score increases. The trick is to request credit limit increases. If you have one credit card with a credit limit of say $5,000, you could request an increase. If approved, and for example, they give you an increase to $10,000, well, you've effectively just lowered your credit utilization without even paying off any of the debt. Because let's just say, for example, that prior to you requesting the increase, your credit card only had a $5,000 credit limit. And so if you carried a balance of $5,000 on that card, then your credit utilization would be a 100%. However, if that same card had a $10,000 credit limit and you had that same $5,000 balance on that card, then your credit utilization would be a 50% instead of a 100%. Now, just keep in mind, this could potentially have temporary side effects, as some credit card companies might pull your credit before giving you an increase, thus lowering your credit score that much more. The next reason you may have a bad credit score is you've been applying for too much credit. Each time you apply for new credit, be it a credit card, store card, or a loan, you'll receive what's known as a hard inquiry on your credit report. And a hard inquiry on your credit report will look something like this. You'll see the name of the company, when the company inquired about your credit report, the address of that company, and a short description. Now, if you have a good credit score, then a couple of hard inquiries each year won't have a drastic impact on your credit score. But if you have a below average credit score, then you really want to avoid hard inquiries as much as possible. But if it's too late and you already have a lot of hard inquiries on your report, how do you fix it? The first thing you should do is immediately stop applying for new credit. Hard inquiries stay on your credit report for 2 years, but will only impact your credit score for about the first year. And so if you stop applying for new credit today, a year from now, you should start to see your score increase again. Outside of waiting for them to fall off your credit report naturally, there's nothing else that you can do to remove them other than wait. Now, you may be thinking to yourself, yeah, but Joshua, the only reason I'm applying for new credit is to build my credit score. How else can I build my credit score without a credit card? Well, for starters, if you have a bad credit score, then you likely won't be approved for any traditional unsecured credit card. Your best bet is going to be to open up some type of secured credit card or even like a credit building loan. Or you could also consider using a credit building card such as the Sesame Cash debit card. Okay, so the last reason that you may have a low credit score is because you have bankruptcies or foreclosures on your credit report. Bankruptcies or foreclosures will have a significantly negative impact on your credit score, and I must be honest with you, they're going to be very difficult to remove, but it is possible. So how do you remove foreclosures from your credit report? The first thing that you'll want to do is see if any of these are true about your foreclosure. Now, I don't want to go over all 4 of these individually because there's really only 2 of them that you have the most control over, and that's the first point and the last point. For starters, foreclosures will automatically fall off your credit report after 7 years. And so if you just want to wait, then you'll have to wait 7 years. However, if it's only year 2, for example, and you don't want to have that foreclosure on your credit report for the next 5 years, you can potentially get it removed by checking for inaccurate information on the foreclosure. Within your credit report, you'll want to look very closely for inaccuracies in the balance of the foreclosure, any dates associated with the account number, the name of the lender, or anything else that might seem incorrect. If you find anything that's even remotely incorrect, contact the credit agencies immediately and open a dispute. I'll include a link in the description below to a sample letter provided by the FTC that you can send to the credit agencies. Any information on your credit report that cannot be verified with supporting documentation can be removed, including foreclosure. Okay, so what about bankruptcies? How do you fix those? The two most common types of bankruptcies for individuals are Chapter 7 and Chapter 13. A Chapter 13 bankruptcy is when you promise to pay back some of the debt that you owe, but not all of it. These bankruptcies stay on your credit report for 7 years. Chapter 7 bankruptcies are when you don't pay back any of the debt that you owe, and these remain on your credit report for a whopping 10 years. Now, I'm gonna be completely honest with you guys, okay? Removing bankruptcies from your credit report is gonna be nearly impossible to do outside of just letting them fall off naturally. However, its impact does decrease over time. It's also still possible to get things like loans and credit cards even with bankruptcies on your credit report. Now, is it more difficult? Yes, but it is still possible. And if you can just improve all the other areas of your credit, this will show lenders that you've learned from your mistakes and are no longer considered a risk. Anyways, you guys are amazing, and I will see you again very soon. Take care.